Excuse me, but it's a wonderful photograph. Don't you agree? And it's a wonderful photograph of my returning guest. And just to say that my guest, Sami Steigmann, and I are going to be doing a number of shows because there is so much information that Sami wishes to convey. So I'm going to bring on Sami and we will continue our discussion. Sami, part 2, and thank you so much for joining me again. It's very much appreciated, my friend.
Okay, thank you again. I love your show, but I have first of all I have to apologize for the first time on the previous segment. I made one mistake and I omitted something. Number one, I said that the Auschwitz-Birkenau was liberated in January 27, 1942, which is incorrect. It was in 1945. The second one is I omitted to say that in 1991, 46 years after the war ended, okay, another group of people were finally recognized as Holocaust survivor. And they are called the hidden children, people that had to live in the forest, in the sewers, uh, did everything that they could to escape the dire consequences, and were saved by strangers, hidden by them, at the risk not only of their own lives, but of the lives of their families. It's relatively easy to make a decision when only your life is at stake. But when you have to make a decision concerning your entire family, uh, people have asked me if I would do that, and I said I would like to think that I would do that, but I would have to be in that particular situation to see how I would react. And these were simple people that did the right thing for the right reason. Okay.
Sami, thank you. And it reminds of us with what we discussed in part 1, which is pertinent to your life and how you survived, where that German lady then saw you and saw how you looked at that time and starving, and the fact that she then brought milk to you,
Yeah.
and that, as you explained, what by her actions, what danger was she putting herself in and her family?
And interestingly enough, a number of people have saved Jews. There is no question about it. And other people from other ethnic groups. Uh, However, not enough of them, okay, to make a real difference in stopping, okay, what happened during those days. One thing that I wanted to also to mention something is how was it possible that ordinary people from Germany, from Europe, and other countries participated in the annihilation of the Jewish people? And a lot of the number of people have a tendency to name a person or a group of people by the name of an animal. And the Nazis, okay, portrayed the Jews as rats. Why rats? Because just like Jews, they are very small in number. They live all over the world, but they spread disease. And by portraying the Jews as rats, they convince the world that the Jews are not only a danger to Germany, but to the world. Okay, and that's why propaganda is a very, very powerful tool, okay, for evil.
Thank you. And Sami, for that explanation, because that's so relevant, where we've seen that trope said over the last 2 years, haven't we? That is constantly repeated, and how it's portrayed from a propaganda point of view. Jews as rats being called that.
Right.
That is out there. Um, Sami, can you explain? First of all, this is on your website, when you talk about in Yad Vashem, and Yad Vashem is the memorial to the Holocaust, what happened to the Jewish people during the Second World War, and that Yad Vashem and beyond, and Yad Vashem
in
is in Jerusalem.
Jerusalem.
Yeah, and could you talk about the garden there? You refer to it in your website, which
Yes,
ties in with people that helped to rescue
right.
Jews during that period.
In the garden, they're honoring 27,000 people that saved Jews. I do not know, did not know, do not know the name of the person that saved my life.
Mm.
But I was extremely happy to see a marker honoring the unknown righteous among the nations. So indirectly, the woman that saved my life, a German woman, so we should never stereotype. Uh, okay, indirectly was honored, and that made me extremely happy. Okay, because many times a lot of people do things not for glory, just because it's the right thing to do, and many times they are not recognized. And it's very important to recognize the people that are helping other people in different
In
ways, obviously.
mm, in May this year of 2025, I found myself in Yad Vashem, which is beyond moving, and and also the way it's presented is, may I say, is fantastic. The way it's presented of an awful, dreadful event and events that have unfolded at that time. But when
Have you been able to go to the garden of the righteous?
um, I didn't go there. I didn't go there. Maybe I'm going to have that opportunity in 2 weeks' time.
Right,
I'm
and
sure
then you
Paul.
look for it or ask somebody, where is that particular marker honoring the unknown righteous among the nations? Because uh, okay, a lot of people have helped. Not only Jews, but other ethnic groups to escape the dire consequences. And like I said previously, okay, everything starts with the Jews, but does not end there. So 11 million people were murdered. So 6 million were Jews, but 5 million were not Jewish people.
What and of course at that time, the Germans. This is uncomfortable for some, but it's proven with people like Edwin Black, and I respect his work, who wrote a book called IBM and the Holocaust, and he talks about the Deutsche Hologericht Maschinen, which was a department, which was the company that IBM had abroad in Germany, and they were making money out of that. And of course, it's the punch card technology, and it then contributed to how the Germans had through their censors, they had a list of where everyone was. They had recorded that in regard to the Jews.
Do you know how they knew, besides the people that gave up the Jews? But do you know how they knew where the Jewish people live?
Go on, my friend. Go on.
IBM.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm
Don't
sorry.
worry.
Let me get rid of it. Where are you?
Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry, Sammy. That's brilliant.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah.
is that your
Yeah.
agent ready for
Yes.
your next acting
Uh,
role?
Isabel, I'll call you later. I'm right now on a podcast. Talk to you soon. Bye. Okay.
No, Sammy, that's brilliant. That wasn't your agent ready for your next movie part. Brilliant.
So,
So as
there
I
was
was alluded,
no
as I was
Isabel.
alluding,
She's from Canada, but there was a rally called No Fear,
right,
a national rally. They expected to have about 500,000 people. Only 3,000 people showed up.
right.
Uh, okay, there was a senator, there was a congressman. Okay, but no Jewish leader was there. So it was something very disappointing. Okay, national rally, and Isabel, okay, she was one of the speakers, and she recognized me. So it was okay. So we are in touch, okay, many times. So anyway, uh, what I wanted, where was I? What did I say?
We were just talking, just quickly when you were just the remarks you've just made. Was that a rally that's just happened in Canada, Sammy, or
No,
did
no,
that?
it happened in Washington D.C.
Right.
Yeah, because it was a national rally, and only
Mm.
3,000 people showed up.
When
Okay.
was that? When was that?
I would say about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago.
Right.
Okay, and I had a hat
Yep.
called. Let me see if I can share it with you. Okay, search. Okay. Uh,
I'm very sorry that only 3,000 people turned up.
well, it shows okay. Uh, that we are not united, and we don't know how to combat. Okay. Uh, Let me see if I have it. Yes. Can you see the hat? I
Uh,
didn't share it. Let me
no, don't
see.
worry. Try and share it
Okay. Okay. Where do I have share? I
on
don't.
the present or invite. So where you've got that plus
Image,
screen.
video. Oh,
Yeah.
share screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sammy, you're doing
Uh,
brilliantly. Don't worry.
did you see the picture?
No. No. Uh,
Okay. Again. Okay. Do you see the picture? No fear.
no. If you
Okay.
don't worry. Don't worry. We'll try that later. Or what
Okay.
we can do is either in the next time we have a conversation, we'll bring that in.
Okay.
So what you just made a comment where sadly
Okay.
3,000 people turned up for that
Right.
rally.
And
And then
this
you
is
were
part of
saying,
the problem. The Jews are not the people that demonstrate and everything else. And we have to take example from Martin Luther King Jr., that he brought people from other ethnic groups, marched nationwide, brought the media with him. And because of him, okay, they had groundbreaking legislations, okay, established in the United States. So, okay, that's what I suggest to when I give presentations, to take example from Martin Luther King Jr.
I hear you. I mean, a few weeks ago in London, there was a march against anti-Semitism. I was there, and we filmed it. And there were only 70. There were 70,000 people there. That's a lot of people, but that wasn't enough in many in on a personal level. I feel, but
You had 700,000.
we had 70,000. I wish it was 700,000.
70,000. Yeah.
We had seventy
Okay.
thousand.
Okay. So, okay. So you have a very good example that do not participate, in rallies and everything else,
Hmm.
which is
But
which is a big problem.
yeah, no, I agree. Going back to what we were saying about IBM. So in 1939, the
Yeah.
then
Okay.
head of IBM,
Yes.
head of
Okay.
IBM. Yep,
What
go.
happened is there were many foundations, organizations that helped the Nazis, but interestingly enough, IBM came out with a census, with the tablets, and uh, they provided, those census tabs to the Nazis. And in addition to the people that they gave up the Jews, that was also helping them to find where the Jews live and everything else, the addresses, and they knew how to get them.
Well, they had a. I was just saying they had a company, Edwin Black, who wrote IBM and the Holocaust goes through this, and there's other
Right,
research that people can find,
right. And
and they don't.
the Ford Foundation, and many other
Yes.
organizations that participate.
Mm. But in regard to IBM, they had a company called Deutsche Maschinen, which was a subsidiary of them. They then could deny that they were making any money out of this or had anything to do with this, but it was a subsidiary. Pictures of the machines that were used are out there on the internet, and as you would fully appreciate, you know this, Sami, that when people look into that, it's very, very uncomfortable because these companies, of course, are still very much alive with a history. Um, and just for the record, Bill Gates' mother used to work for IBM. Um, and what I am saying is how these companies continue, the influence that they have. And you raise the Ford Foundation, and if I'm correct, you can tell me that, of course, this whole thing of the Protocols of Zion trope that Ford then contributed to the printing of that. So this is uncomfortable history, but it's true. And I encourage people to go and look at it and research. And talking about uncomfortable history, um,
Yeah.
Sami,
Okay.
when
Let me
we
let me add something to it.
go,
Okay. I used to be an accountant.
right,
Okay. When I came to the States, after a period of time, I did not like it because I was isolated, dealing just with numbers. So I decided to join a pharmaceutical company, okay, as a salesperson. In a derogatory way, they used to call us detail men. But interestingly enough, I worked for a company called Hoechst, Hoechst. And the Hoechst company, after the war, was divided in four different companies, each one bigger than, okay, IG Farben, okay, was at its zenith. So I know two of them, maybe three. Aqua was one, Bayer, and Höchst. And where I used to live in Milwaukee. In my area, I had a lot of Jewish doctors. And they asked me, how can you work for a Nazi company? And these were not Nazis. It was an American company, American employees. It was after the war. Uh, so they kept bugging me. So I said, how come you're using a Nazi product, okay, to save lives? They stopped bugging me. But I'm just saying that there is a lot of history that people do not know.
well, when you raised that about IG Farben, so IG Farben had to give up its patents as it was leading up to the Second World War. When it was founded in 1925, there were a number of patents it gave up. It then, but also then created, it had a subsidiary that it was still making money off in America. Now, again, this history is uncomfortable, but what you've just said is right. IG Farben, I believe, then was dissolved in 1997, and by then had paid no reparations back
Right.
in regard to its actions. And in our first conversation, as I said, that Auschwitz II. Um, is where they made synthetic oil. And of course, that whole camp had to be created. That was created with slave labor, and slave labor then worked inside that camp, all guided by IG Farben. And unfortunately, as you are fully aware, that IG Farben then created Cyclone B, that was then used in the gas chambers. And I urge anyone to really research this. There are a number of books that you can buy, and I will, in our third conversation, I will. There's a couple of books that I will bring to our attention on that. But you are Absolutely right, because there is a statement after when we discuss what you've been through. Again, there's uncomfortable history that we have to look at, and that's people will know what I'm alluding to on a personal level when I mention Bill Gates, when I
Right.
mention the family link with IBM.
And
But Sammy,
the other thing that I have to say is, if we don't talk about it,
hmm,
people will not know. So we must talk about it and not to be afraid what other people will say, what other people think. And you never know. Uh, some people may finally be able to, uh, how shall I say, to have a critical way of thinking. Okay, because right now a lot of people use slogans without necessarily knowing what they're talking about. Okay, and it's important, for us to talk about those things, as uncomfortable as it may be.
absolutely, because the biggest thing, you are a living embodiment of this in regard to what you've been through. So
Yeah,
when we get on to we get back onto medical experiments in the middle in a minute, but that is all financed by then IG Farben, and I'll then give you a little anecdote. Over here, of course, was Bayer and the old Bayer offices building in southern England, just on the outskirts of London, northwest. They they're not used by they were shut down by Bayer. They're not used, but there were experiments
right,
animals that were kept there. But during having met one gentleman that used to run that building, and then of course management would come over, and as one anecdote he said, where management say, don't mention the Second World War, don't mention our involvement, don't mention what we were then up to, and
right,
this can all be proven,
right.
and is very, very relevant, if I may say, without getting myself in trouble with YouTube. This is very relevant, in my opinion, to
Right.
various things that we have seen,
Okay.
but very immediately. Yes, sorry, Sam.
The other thing that I also want to mention is, right now your audience is not learning history. This is living history, which means that they have the opportunity, okay, to ask questions, okay. And I started to for 63 years. I felt I don't belong to the Holocaust survivors or the children of the Holocaust survivors. And the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. closed its doors to the general public for 2 days, opened it up only to the Holocaust survivors, their children, their liberators, once a year for 16 years in a row. And I never went. But in November 1st and November 2nd of 2003, meant to be, I decided to go. There were over 8,000 people in at the table where I was sitting. I met a man born in the same city, been in the same camp, deported when he was 8 months old, okay, and at the same time, I was deported when I was a year and a half. By being to talk to him, living history, I felt for the first time that I belong to both generations, Holocaust survivors and children of Holocaust survivors. And this is what your audience is experiencing today, not just history, learning from movies, from the podcast and everything else, but they have the opportunity, okay, to ask questions. And
You
hopefully you will give that opportunity, you will give it to the people to ask questions.
well, this reminds me of Rosa, who has very kindly written a wonderful comment about yourself, describing you as a national treasure in part one, and which I think I fully agree with. And the other thing is to say to people, as you've just said, ask questions, put questions in the comments, and it'd be fantastic to address those. But you've just described something really brilliantly, actually, because when we watch films, we watch all the newsreels, whether that's old Pathé newsreels, etc. We watch all that, and it seems as though that there is a huge separation between ourselves and what we're watching. And as you said, we immediately see that as history, helped by they're in black and white and etc. But then suddenly sitting down and having a conversation with you, praise God, you're living. You will continue to do that for many years, and you have so much to say. And it is living. It's then that interaction, and that responds a question that I have to you is when you felt that you were not in the Holocaust survivors group, or can
Children.
you describe that? Can you describe that to me? Why and what were your feelings about all that?
Okay, all right. I will explain. Okay, what happened is, number one, being so young, I have no memories of that period of time when I was in the camp. So for me, it's a blessing in disguise because I don't have to relive those horror stories like the older generation. Until the Eichmann trial in 1961 in Israel, the survivors did not speak publicly, and they wanted to have the children, okay, lead a normal life. So they did not want to burden them with those horror stories. I knew that I'm a Holocaust survivor because my father was talking a lot about the fact that from 42 people, only two survived. Okay. And also, he applied for reparations from Germany, not blood, not asking for blood money. But what he wanted to do is he wanted to be recognized as a German subject. Okay, who never lived in Germany. Uh, so he had to go through a very difficult test in German culture, literature, history, everything, and he finally got the pension. Okay, and recognized all his years of work and everything else. I personally did not want uh, to have anything to do, and I said I don't want the blood money. Later on, I applied, but it was too late because the Germany reunited, and they did not take any more application. But because I was in a, my income was not that high, so I finally received money because when I went to the consulate, okay, they told me that they cannot take new applications, but looking at my income, they said you are eligible to get to something called Article 2. So today, I'm getting from Germany every 3 months about $2,000, okay, with the inflation and everything else. It's not a lot, but at least it's the recognition, okay, that I was in a labor camp and that I was subjected to medical experiments. Uh, I did not feel that I belonged to the children of the Holocaust survivors because most of them were born in DP camps, displaced people. They had to be there between 3 and 5 years under difficult conditions because no country wanted them. So, what happened is one thing that was missing was the daily threat of being murdered. So, I did not feel that I belonged to them. And that's when I was in Washington, D.C. in 2003.
3, is it? Yep.
In 2003, and that's for the first time that I felt I belong to both generations. I think I mentioned this in the previous one. In 2007, I joined the Holocaust Museum in New York, and in 2008, I gave my first assignment to sixth graders, and they sent me thank you letters, and one sixth grader, okay, changed my life forever. And she wrote, P.S. Your story was overwhelming, and I promise I'll pass your story to my children. So you never know how, when you will reach somebody. And my goal is not to change somebody. I know for a fact that we cannot change anybody. We can only show them a different perspective, and they have to make the change. Okay, so my goal is to show them a different perspective.
When you, Sami, when you're talking about the displacement camps, and of course, that's where our mutual friend Rabbi Ben uh, was born in. So the displacement camps, you are talking yeah, you are talking after the war, aren't you? Whereas you've said no one then wanted you, and then people went from those camps and were then dispersed around the world. Is that a
Correct.
fair assessment?
These were camps liberated by the Allies, Americans, Brits, uh, Russians, and Australians. So they were in those camps because quite a number of people survived. Okay. But you see the irony, the Nazis murdered 1.5 million children, but they allowed many women, okay, to give birth in those camps. Uh, uh, it's absolutely astounding. It's amazing. You know, there's so many idiosyncrasies that it's difficult to understand and to believe.
Why did it take until 1991 for them to recognize what children had been through? Why did it take so long, Sam?
Because they didn't think of them. They were not in a camp.
Right.
So they did not feel, okay, like I said previously, that in my opinion, a Holocaust survivor is somebody that was in one of the three type of camps. But they fought for recognition, and changes take a very long time. People,
Well, absolutely. When we've alluded to, of course, that
right,
IG Farben
right,
then go out, then are taken, dismantled in
right.
1997, and there is no reparations paid. I understand to what Jewish people suffered under their actions. Um,
By the way, when Ben Gurion made an agreement with Adenauer for reparations, guess who opposed it?
IG Farben,
No, the Holocaust survivors. They did not want the blood money.
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay, and interestingly enough, Ben Gurion did not listen to them. He made an agreement with Adenauer, and that also helped Israel to get in their feet because they did not have a lot of money at that time.
Do you know what, Sammy? It's like sitting down with you, learning all of this and these little anecdotes here and here, which are so important, is such a privilege. So thank you. And Sammy, if we go down this line that is not nice and that is not comfortable, when we discover, of course, the experiments that were done by the Nazis, Mengele infamously known, and then when you research and then we find out, as I've said, we find out who is then paying for that, IG Farben, etc., then paying for these experiments. So there were many people that were experimented on. There's a statement I'll say after we've chatted about this. Um, were you you've got no memory of that in your. I don't want to take you down a line that is uncomfortable, but you've got no memory of that.
No. And okay, I am just very lucky. I was also very lucky that I was not separated from my parents, and the German woman saved my life. So, if you will ask any survivor, how come you're alive today?
Yes.
Almost everybody, okay, will say luck. Uh,
But
so I was lucky three times.
there are books, there are research showing what was done experimentally, and it's awful, especially where Mengele is doing experiments on twins and all of this kind of thing, and finding out information of whether you put human beings in cold water for x amount of time, and then gathering all of this information. Sami, you have.
One second, I would just want to give an example.
Mm,
Okay, a Holocaust survivor that I personally know. Okay, Mengele, okay, wanted to send her, okay, to the gas chambers.
right.
And what happened? Okay, the planes came over Auschwitz, like Birkenau. And guess what? Okay, Mengele got scared. Okay, okay, he left, and that's how she survived. There are so many stories that people were completely, okay, unbelievably lucky.
Have
So
you? Has anyone asked you about um, why the Allies didn't bomb the railway lines earlier in regard to the railway lines going to Auschwitz, for argument's sake, and other camps? Why they didn't do that earlier to stop
well,
to to
okay,
disrupt?
the common knowledge is that that was not a priority for them.
Mm, mm.
Okay, the priority was to destroy the German military. But that is the common knowledge, at least what uh, a lot of people say about it. The people that know about it. Uh, I don't think that okay that who was president at that time. Remind me.
Um, uh, Sorry, it's Roosevelt, isn't it?
Roosevelt, yes.
Yeah.
So a lot of people felt that he was a anti-Semite. My personal opinion is that he was not. However, the State Department was, and he did not do enough, okay, to stop them. One of the best example is with Cuba. 937 Jews, okay, boarded a ship, okay, to come to Cuba, and they got legal visas. Because of the State Department, the Cubans kept them at the port for 3 days and allowed only 937, a very small group of people, I think about 34, allowed them, to disembark. Uh, and that was because of the pressure from the State Department. The captain who was of the ship, who was a German, did not want to bring him back to Europe, so he decided to come, okay, to Miami, okay. And again, because of the State Department, they did not allow him to disembark. And finally, four countries took the people, but they were again under the German occupation.
Well,
So,
that I mean, also with Churchill's decision at that time in regard to boats, in regard to the Jewish people wanting to return to then to Palestine under the mandate, is another very shameful period of history in regard
right,
to being denied that access.
right.
Um, but you raise. Let's go down this historical line because you raise a very important point, fundamentally important point, which is then leading up to the State Department in regard to recognizing Israel as those debates was going on, as it was approaching the declaration on May the 15th, I believe, 1948, by Ben Gurion and his then government. Um, and the fact that leading up to that, there was quite an argument within the State Department in America about recognizing Israel. The advice given to Truman by some was to not do that, and then Harry Truman
Yeah.
ignored that and did that.
He
Um,
was, he was very hesitant. He
yes.
went through a difficult period of time to finally make the decision to recognize the state of Israel. But it was not something that right away he said, "Yes, I am going to recognize it." He went through a lot of soul searching.
Mm. He did, and that's why it's very important to look at that history. Then look at the research papers, look at the discussions that were then coming out of the State Department at that time. And when we refer to Roosevelt, it's another interesting discussion, being influenced by Straight's book, The Green New Deal, and also his. I think I'm being very fair to say his socialist tendencies, but it's really important to look at that, and also to remember going to Yalta to look at that discussion between Roosevelt, Churchill, and
Stalin.
Stalin. And it's not, hear me, Sammy, I'm not playing clever historical point games going, we'll tick that off. It's really important that we constantly set the scene to show the turmoil that was going on within the world, and the way people make decisions or not make
Right.
decisions.
And
But
sometimes they are personal, sometimes they are national,
mm,
so there are many variables. Okay. And I personally do not judge anybody. Okay. I just look at the history, what happened, and to learn from it. And hopefully, the young people, by learning from history, not comparing it, by learning from history, in becoming active, okay, hopefully they will be able to prevent future tragedies. But like anything else, it takes time. It's not sudden. Like for instance, people are used to right now everything is on Instagram, it's TikTok, and whatever it is. So they look at everything else instant. And the same thing, for instance, when we talk, for instance, and we'll talk another time about Ukraine. They ignore the history. They don't know what happened. Okay, and that's why they follow slogans. In most of the cases, they have no idea what they're talking about.
you, I mean, again, you make a brilliant point, because when you were talking about Transnistria yesterday, and all of that history, I believe, is very relevant to. We need to, it'd be great to discuss this at some other point, but all of that is relevant to what is going on with the war with Russia and Ukraine after the Russian invasion
Absolutely.
in February 2022. And it's
Yes.
understanding that. It's like when you talk about when you were in Wisconsin. If I've got my history correct, and we look at Golda Meir, so Golda Meir's family come from Kiev.
From
They
Milwaukee.
eventually they come over to America, and they end up in Wisconsin. I'm not sure whether that
Uh,
is Milwaukee in Wisconsin.
she lived there. She was born there.
Yeah. So she's there, and
in
then
in Milwaukee, Wisconsin,
yeah,
where I lived.
yeah, and then eventually she goes back to Israel as a young woman. But it's to remember why. Look at that distance traveling. Look at the pogroms that were happening in that part of the world around about 1880, 1885. Of course, they've gone on for thousands of years, but I'm just referring to Golda Meir and her journey, her family, and that effect. Um, but yes, that whole history, remembering ourselves that Kiev was the capital city of Russia at, at, at that time, and then what unfolded, and
Right
it's all relevant, as you say now, to
now,
where
when
you
I
were born.
speak when I speak with young people,
Mm,
I tell them, okay, again, I'm repeating it. I said it before. You cannot change anybody. You can change somebody's perspective. But if you want to change somebody's perspective, you must be knowledgeable on the subject that is very dear to you. I, for instance, will not talk about climate change. Not interested in it. I have no okay knowledge, so I will not discuss it. I will not discuss with the Holocaust denier because they can quote certain articles or whatever. I have no idea. I'm not interested in it. I will not discuss with them. Uh, but it's whatever subject you're interested. If people want to, for instance, to talk about Gaza. You have to understand to be knowledgeable about the state of Israel. You have to understand and be knowledgeable on the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis. You have to be knowledgeable to change somebody's perspective. Uh, a lot of people are just quoting certain things that they heard on TV, they read in the newspaper, whatever, and it's not convincing at all anybody. I can give you one particular example. When somebody says something to you that is contrary to your beliefs, most people have a tendency to go on attack or in defense. So let's assume somebody would say to me, as an Israeli Holocaust survivor, a Jew, will say Israel is an apartheid state. Okay, most of the people will go in defense. Well, Israel is a democracy. Who cares? Okay, what I would do, okay, is I would say, you know something, I agree with you. Can you imagine the shock of that person when somebody like me says, I agree with you? And then I say, you know something, you must be very knowledgeable on the subject because you brought it up. What is apartheid? Okay, where did you learn about it? Who told you about it? By depending on the answer of that particular person, I will have to make two decisions. If that person, okay, has an open mind and I'm knowledgeable on the subject, I will continue the discussion. But if I realize that that person has a closed mind, I will not go into an argument. I will just politely say, let's agree to disagree and leave. But a lot of people, they start right away the confrontation. You have to diffuse what they are saying, what their beliefs are. Then you can go. And the only way that you can do it, the way I do it, my opinion, is basically to ask a lot of questions and to find out how they know about it. And then it's easy, relatively easy to find out if that person has an open mind or a closed mind.
Or when you ask those questions, you find out what they don't know, and you're, as you say, you're respectfully, gently probing, because we well, let's go. Just we're in the last sort of 8 minutes, but,
Right.
but let's go down this line when
I
we've
don't. I
seen.
don't have to tell them that they're stupid. They don't
No,
have
no,
to.
no,
Let them
no.
find out by
They're
themselves.
they're going to brilliant, Sammy. Thank you. That's brilliantly said. And in fact, when we've seen videos on the streets of London on the river to the sea cult people following, as I'll call it, when they are protesting, and when the classic has been what sea, what river, they can't tell you. And then when they say, "Oh, it's as I say, an apartheid state," and you're going, "How?" And then when you remind them and say there's at least 2 million Arab Israeli citizens that are in the borders of the country of Israel, and then if you then go through and you say, well, in fact, an Arab descendant judge, Israeli citizen, put a Israeli prime minister voted to put them in prison within the democracy that Israel works under. So when you go through these facts, some of them are very, very uncomfortable if you're
They,
given that
they, they, they don't
opportunity.
want to. They don't want to listen. I don't know if I said it yesterday, but I spoke to a Pakistani woman. Did I mention that
No,
yesterday?
I don't think so. But carry on. Let's hear.
Okay, so just to show you how indoctrinated the people are, and she said what's happening in Gaza is genocide. So no matter in which direction you try to go, she was steady on it. So my friend who brought me to the Washington Square Park here in New York, he said, "Oh, by the way, I brought a Holocaust survivor with me, and he served in the Israeli Air Force." She looked at me. She said, "You are part of the problem. I lived in the United States for 60 years. How am I part of the problem?" But this is, I'm telling you how indoctrinated they are. And once they're indoctrinated, it's almost impossible to bring into critical thinking. And that's why I'm saying when we talk about the Holocaust, which must be taught forever and ever, because from my perspective, it's the best example what hate can do, not only to a person, but to a group of people, to a nation, and to the world. Okay, I start with very young people before they are indoctrinated. Once they're indoctrinated, many times, with very few exceptions, it's too late.
Well,
And
as yeah, as
BDS, for instance, the BDS, they
mm,
started with
mm,
the campuses, they succeeded. They
mm.
went to high school, they succeeded. Now they are at middle school. So it's, unfortunately, there are not enough people to talk, or a lot of people do not want to hear about it. I am more of a motivational speaker. For me, the Holocaust is just the background. Okay, I don't talk about the pain that people suffered, because every person goes through a trauma and they react differently. Like I told you, for instance, the movie, okay, Eleanor the Great. From my perspective, it's less about the Holocaust. It has to do with the Holocaust, but it's less about it. It's mostly how people react and deal with trauma.
um, that is an extremely powerful statement, and it's very humbling for me because one of the things that you said yesterday when you talked about sister, or the last time we sat down, is when you talked about forgiveness, and you said how it's got to, we're saying it up here, but it's got to reach out. It's got to reach our heart. And when you're saying that, Sami, explaining and myself learning about what you've been through, and of course other Holocaust survivors, but just talking to you because I'm talking to you with your life experience, that was very, very humbling. Because after all that you've been through, if you can do that, then the rest of us really need to work on that.
On my business card, my motto is, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to be. And within my means, okay, uh, I remain true to myself and happy within the limits of my income. Interestingly enough, I had a girlfriend, and when I introduced her to some friends, she used to say, "Hi, my name is Anita. I'm bipolar." Who cares? Who asked you? But that was her identity. Going through, okay, being in the Holocaust, okay, overcoming life challenges. That's not what identifies me. What identifies me is what I do. And that's what I want to teach the young people, okay, to become very active and to fight the good fight for the right reasons.
Well, I think I need to work out a way of talking to you virtually every day because I need to hear that wisdom, like so many of us need to do that, and I'm not just saying that for hyperbole. I mean it
Right.
because it is very humbling to hear that, and that I just want to remind people there is a long description of describing Sami's experience where you can purchase his books on Amazon. Please look at those. All those descriptions will again be here in part two. But just to we talked about just quickly in the last minute. So we talked about IBM. We mentioned Ford, but the other thing that's uncomfortable, and where you were talking about working as a pharmaceutical salesperson and the doctor's comments, um, the what's uncomfortable is to think that all that information, all those experiments that were gathered under the Nazis under Mengele, were then fed through into the pharmaceutical industry because it was at that time, still is of course relevant, and we need to remember these things of the impact
Yes.
of
As a matter of
this.
fact, sorry for interrupting you, but
Don't worry.
okay, because if I don't say it in the same moment, I forget. But the interesting thing, I talked with medical students about the medical experiments. Okay, and it is very interesting because one of the things, the question is, should we take advantage of the lessons that they learned from these medical experiments, although they were done in inhumane ways? In my opinion, is it was done already, so we should use the lessons that we learned from those experiments. But that is my opinion. Some of the students agree, some of them disagree. That's normal.
Well, of course, and it'd be interesting to discuss with you the Nuremberg trials and who was put on trial and why. Because at that time, the people like Duisberg, then heading up IG Farben at that time, he and others never expected to find themselves in the dock at the Nuremberg trial, being asked about the IG Farben, etc's behaviour. So that is all talks about corporate responsibility, and without going down that road now or boring you with it either, is that on a personal level there are so many parallels that are happening now. Hence why it's so important to have this conversation with you and for people to reflect on history and look at where we are. Sami, if you don't mind, I'm just going to end this because we're coming up to that hour, which is quite incredible how quickly it's gone. And there's some books that I will find that I will show to people, that to encourage them to go and do some research and look at history and to reflect on that. Sami, can I thank you so much for your time
No,
again?
no, no, no. It's my honor. I have to thank you. And you are extremely knowledgeable on the subject. Probably the one, the most uh, podcaster, the only person that I know of that was able to go into so many details that most of the people do not know. So I am grateful to you for uh, having several sessions talking about
Well,
this.
I appreciate your kind words very, very much. They mean a lot. And between now and next time, there is some. I need to bring some facts to the table. Having did a presentation a few months ago on the Holocaust, and recommending also authors like Martin Gilbert, um, the History of the Tragedy book, and others that he's written. So I think it'd be really important we bring those books and we bring that to people's attention. Sami, I'm going to play us out because I'm losing
Okay.
time. But thank you. Stay with me, and I'll say goodbye to you on the other side. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.